Hello, my name is Marian Crotwell, and this presentation will be on my Spring 2019 Practicum for the class LIS 489. So my Practicum site was the Pelahatchie Public Library in Pelahatchie, Mississippi. This library is part of the Central Mississippi Regional Library System, also known as Central Miss. My supervisor was Tina Mooney. She was the branch manager. She did not have a master's in library science. She was the only worker there when I started, and is still the only other worker there besides me. And this picture shows the front of the library. That door is the front door, and there are a couple back doors. So my schedule was on Mondays and Thursdays. I worked around 12 hours each week, unless one of the days we were closed. I mainly stayed at this Practicum site in Pelahatchie. I did visit headquarters once to see the behind the scenes, and I did work at another branch for 2 days due to my supervisor being gone on vacation. So the basics that I learned throughout my practicum was, well, my job was to run the front desk, which was a circulation desk. I checked in and out books. I did the book run, which meant I received the transits coming in, and I took the books that were on hold or any items that were on hold, and I ran them through the system as they were ready for people to come and get. And then I put them up. And then I checked in the rest of the books that were coming back to be shelved. And this involved cleaning all those books to be put back on shelving. And also when I was checking in books, I had to clean them to get ready to shelve. And then I learned how to do the book drop, which was checking it in, seeing which ones went back to other libraries, and printing out the receipts and getting them ready to go in the book run, and cleaning and shelving the rest of them. Also learned how to answer reference questions. These kind of ranged all over the board. And I learned how to run like the copier, printer, fax machine, which is all in one, but there were a lot of different things you had to do with it. And I learned how to run the cash register to give change back for like faxes and copies and all that. And then later on, when I got offered a part-time job at this same library, which I took a couple weeks ago, and around that time I started learning how to open up the library, which I will get into later. So, some responsibility that was added kind of later on. I learned how to create book and movie displays, which was just pulling items that fit the general theme, whether it was just like a princess theme or for Mother's Day, pulling books that went along with mothers. And then I also got to create a bulletin board for the summer reading program, which was about a universe of stories. So we created the moon out of tinfoil, and we created like a little 3D rocket, and just made it look kind of similar to space. And I also, like I mentioned before, I got to work at other branches. I worked at the Morton Public Library in Morton, Mississippi for 2 days, which was a different experience, which I will get into later. And then I also got to do inventory, experience that, which I will talk about. So starting off, like before, with the basics learned, I learned how to check in, check out, shelving, and basically just how to work the system the library used, which was checking, like paying bills for the patrons, checking on holds, placing holds, just seeing how the system worked. And I learned, how to do holds and do the book run, answering reference questions. So starting off, my supervisor just watched me. She let me do everything, and she just watched. And when I needed help, I would ask questions. And then later on, she went back to her office and let me run the front desk by myself. But whenever I had something that I didn't know the answer to, I didn't know what the policy was, I just went back there and asked her the question. So in terms of reference questions, these are some examples that I experienced and had to answer. I had a few like on applications on the internet, like job applications. I had to find the right application for the patron to fill out. Some of them I had to print. And then for book series and DVDs, I had a lot of questions on whether this book was part of a series, which book it was in a series, and then if the library had series. Same with the DVDs, whether we had certain DVDs or if we could place a hold on it and get it for them. I had to do computer reservations for younger teens that needed me to do that. I did on National Tax Day. I had quite a few patrons come in and I had to find specific tax forms for them from the IRS government website. So I hadn't done that before, so I did have to get my supervisor to help me with that. But it was very interesting to see what all it involved. And the next was the author and movie requests, which kind of goes in with book series and DVDs. I had one patron come in who knew the first name of an author that she really liked, but didn't know the last name. So I just had to look up authors with the first name in our system and see if I could find the one she was talking about, and I actually got it right on the first try and was able to find her a few books for her. And I had another patron come in with a kid who needed me to help find some kid movies that would fit or that would entertain a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, and so I was able to find her a few that would work. And then another thing is I would get asked, how to print something a lot, how to print it all on one page, get it to fit, or like how to darken the letters on other pages, and just stuff like that. It's all across the board. So I had a few ethical situations I ran into, which some of it definitely went back to my classes and ethics. We had one patron who came in and was needing to send money to a prison and was wanting us to pretty much do it for the person. And my supervisor had to explain that we couldn't do that we weren't allowed to do that because it was their privacy. And it was a little difficult to explain that to them because they weren't quite understanding, but we eventually did get through and they did thank us for helping as much as we did. Another situation was that a patron was actually stealing the DVDs out of the cases whenever they came in. And since it is a small library, not many people come in, especially at one time. So it's pretty easy to identify who's doing what. So my supervisor did know who was stealing the DVDs and had to ask headquarters if she could confront the person, and she was told no. So what we did was when the patron came in, my supervisor went over there and just pretended to go through the DVDs for some reason and just kind of nonchalantly stated how it was gonna be bad if we had to take all the DVDs out and put them behind the desk and have to pull them for each DVD someone checked out. And that was just going to take longer for people because since somebody was stealing them. She didn't allude to that person stealing them, but ever since she did kind of nonchalantly address the issue to the person, the patron stopped stealing them. So it did end good. And then another kind of ethical situation was we have a patron who comes in and he wants us to print a lot of pages. And this happened during a really busy day one time, and it was a good few many pages to do, and it took us a few hours to print them all. And me and my supervisor had to take turns and help other patrons while doing it. And so when the patron came back to collect them, my supervisor just kindly, suggested that maybe the patron leave the books with us next time for like all day or overnight, and we can get it done better then, especially if it is a busy day. And they totally understood and was kind about it. So in all of these situations ended pretty good. So inventory for this library had not been done since 11 years ago, so it was much needed. And the process was to take an item, scan it, make sure everything checks out okay in the system, and if everything was okay, then we could reshelve it. If there was an error, then we had to pull the book for the cataloging team to sort through and fix in the system. And then after we did the whole library, there is these sheets printed that showed all the books that weren't scanned, and so we had to go through all the list and try to find all the books that we could, and we would just mark them off and everybody would double check each list, and they just repeated this process until we eventually narrowed it down to ones that we just were absolutely not in the library. And so we only came up with 137 items missing, which some were items that were weeded out by my supervisor that she had forgot to delete from the system. And then some may have been in transit, so they just weren't at the library at that time. But we had one of the lowest numbers in all of the Central Miss system, which was really great because another library had like over 2,000 items missing. So we did pretty good. So my headquarters visit, I spent the whole day there and just kind of got to meet everyone and see how everything worked. So I started off the day talking to the director of the Central Miss system, and she just told me about her life, why she went into librarianship, what her personal life was like, what her job really entailed. And then she showed me audit books, what the board meeting agendas looked like, and then she showed me how she organized all of her planners and how she wrote every single thing down to help her sort through everything. And after that, I got to visit the catalogers, and they showed me how they catalog the items, how they conduct the ILL request, how they contact other libraries, and which ones that generally comply and will send the items to them. And after that, I got to see where headquarters buys their books and DVDs online, and I got to see what the online cart looks like. And then I got to visit with the children's head librarian, and she showed me how she saves everything for crafts. Like, she would save old DVDs or bottle tops, anything and everything, so that she could create crafts with them. And it was really neat because she had a whole closet full of crafts that she had saved. And then I ended the day being able to watch a webinar on the Beanstack app, which was actually what we're using for the summer reading program. And I got to see, firsthand how it works. And I got to watch team members try to figure it out and see how they were going to present it to all the staff and the patrons. So working at another branch, like I said, I worked at the Morton Library. I ran the circulation desk, to checking in and out shelving, answering questions. This is where I helped create a bulletin board and the book and movie displays. I did a princess display, and then I did a Curious George display. And then I got to watch the branch manager put together a teacher's kit to check out to the teacher. It was like a space kit and a dinosaur kit, and she just put together some items since we didn't actually have a dinosaur kit. She just wrote down what was involved in it and gave it to the teacher. So that was really neat. And pretty much everything was conducted the same as my Practicum site library. So that was nice because it was all pretty much similar. So overall, what I learned is that I learned how to be approachable and respectful. I think that's such a it's a crucial part of the job, is to be approachable and to let patrons know that you can help them, and to respect whatever their decisions are, whatever their items are, whether you disagree with them or not. I also learned how to be stern in ethical situations and times where I need to say, I can't do this for you. I learned how to be confident in myself and my job and what I need to do. I loved figuring out the community and what the regular patrons love to check out, and I eventually kind of got to know everyone. And I loved creating a bond with these patrons. And now they know me and I know them, and it's really great. And then I also got to know how much really goes into running a library. So that was really great. So, like, overall, I just really learned, what it takes to run a library and how hard it can be and how rewarding it can be at the same time. So it definitely solidified my decision to go into this career, and I'm super excited that I was able to get a job and to continue doing this and to experience a summer reading program for sure. So that is the end of my presentation, and I really enjoy my practicum, and I'm just glad to work on my way to be a librarian.